we're back with another episode of the Baptist Boyz. I'm Jason here with the co-star,
Aaron.
That's right, Aaron. Good strong introduction there, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, so
I practiced.
We're continuing on in our series. What's our series called?
What's the difference?
Between what?
Well, Orthodox religion and Christianity and everything else.
That's right. Okay, so that's what we're going through.
Yeah. Well, basis is Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, as it first was seen through the Word, through traditions and things, and then where we've started to deviate, that's why we've gone over things like the Pentecostal movement, the Holiness movement, the Nazarenes. Now we're moving on to another denomination would be
Protestants.
Mm-hmm. Specifically,
the Presbyterians.
Presbyterians, that's right.
Yes, so, if you're a Presbyterian out there, this is your time to shine.
This is going to be tough.
Yeah. Right. All right. So Presbyterians, we're going to we're going to hit it's going to be a broad spectrum here.
We're going to throw a lot at you.
Yeah, kind of, as quickly as we can.
But not like a lot as in of one subject. It's going to be a lot of a bunch of different things.
Just a chance to kind of get you started.
A vague overview.
Kind of give a category and start your own research.
Yeah.
All right, so Presbyterians kind of started when they came over to America in the 1700s. They came from more Scottish, Irish kind of people, backgrounds. The Puritans, a lot of the Puritans were Presbyterians. They trace back to John Calvin specifically, and from there some other people as well.
Yep.
What are some other people they go back to?
Wycliffe, Jan Hus, things like that. Now I could be saying both of those names absolutely wrong, so forgive
that's why
me.
I asked you to say it. Yeah. But anyway, so they go back to John Calvin. So you can imagine there's some things that come out of the Reformation that they kind of hold to. One of the things they ended up developing that kind of initially that held the Presbyterians together, there were some basic things. One being the Westminster Confession. Mm-hmm. They kind of held that there together. That kind of held the Presbyterians together. They kept infant baptism, but didn't link it to salvation like the Roman Catholics did.
Okay.
They had more of a covenantal theology view. Now that's a whole episode on itself, so I'm going to oversimplify this and hope my Presbyterian friends don't get mad at me for not explaining it well.
No, they will.
I know, they will. But basically, covenant theology is it's just a sacrament that almost took the place of circumcision.
Okay.
Just like all the Jews were all circumcised, and then the idea was like you will raise them up in the faith.
Right.
The idea is believers, their children, they baptize them, they usually sprinkle the children, and promise. It'd be similar to what we would call a baby dedication.
That's what we do. We don't do it.
Right.
There's no water or anything like that. But what we do is we do, because I've done a few. And, you stand in front of the church. We as the parents me and Emmy agreed to raise our children up in the teachings of the Word, in fellowship with the congregation, that we would disciple them, that we would teach them and love them, and things like that. I mean, now. So
it's kind of like that. If you're a Baptist, baby dedication with some sprinkling. That's kind of how their view of infant.
Oversimplified,
massively. But we're not going to dedicate a whole episode to that anyway,
calm down.
So you can look at that on your own.
Yep.
Also, because it came from John Calvin and those the reformers there, they were very reformed in their belief, Calvinistic.
Right. Yeah.
Most the Presbyterians, when you start and you're seeing them early in America, they are hardcore 5-point Calvinists.
Yeah.
And Reformed. A lot of your Presbyterian people are going to be Amiel. Now we've had episodes about that. That has to do with
you can go back and watch those.
You can go back.
What's that word? It was an episode called "What's That Word?" If you find it, you can find it in there. We talk a little bit about that.
That's right. But they organize a little differently. In Baptist life, we say pastor.
Yeah.
They use words like elders, pastors, session, general assembly, things like that. And so there's some different layers to their leadership. An elder may not be a pastor may not be an elder. They separate those out. They have ruling elders, then they have teaching pastors, then they have a session, which is made up of lay people and elders and pastors to help govern. Then they have a general assembly. So a little bit different. They're not they're not autonomous like we are as Baptists.
Now there are some that are.
Yeah.
Some Presbyterian denominations are autonomous like us, but they all absolutely hold to the pastor elder board, clergy, Presbyterian. Presbyterian does mean what that literally means, elder, I think, right? Something in that fashion in the Greek.
Kind of like an overseer.
Yeah. Well, pastor,
where you get the
bishop,
word
overseer,
bishop from, yeah.
So and they work together in unison. They call them connectional congregations. So the churches are what we would call an association. They would call that a connectional congregation, as in they work with each other, they partner with each other, they come together and form the synods, they form the general assemblies and things like that.
Right.
So
now, those were 5 general things. We did 5 because, you know what? They have the 5 points of Calvinism. So we did 5 points there on the Presbyterians, generally speaking. But moving on from that, from around 1800s, there was a lot of splitting within the Presbyterian churches in America specifically.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of different Presbyterian denominations that come along. We are going to talk about 3 in particular, and 2 because they're very common, and 1 because it's particular to our area.
Correct.
Started, an hour and a half up the road from us. So you have the Presbyterian Church USA.
Okay, that's the largest.
Yep. And then we're going to talk about the Cumberland Presbyterian.
One of the smaller ones. Yeah.
Right. But that's the one that started an hour and a half from here.
And that's
mostly
next door
in
to
Middle
us.
Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah, it's in our, people are from around here are familiar with
Yep.
that. And then Presbyterian Church of America.
Yep, and that's the second, I would say the second largest in the Presbyterian world.
Right. All right. So we'll start with Presbyterian USA.
Yeah, so, okay, let's see if I get this right. They were formed between 2 different, which was the United Presbyterian Church of the United States, and then the Presbyterian Churches of America, right?
Something
like that.
Not Presbyterian Church of America. That's PC.
No, yeah, not of America, but of the U.S. or whatever it was. But there's 2 of them that formed together and then collectively made Presbyterian Church United States of America.
Right.
Now that, and I'm going to say this because this is all the stuff I read, everything that we've talked about, even the 3 videos I watched from Presbyterian elders said that PCUSA is the most liberal of the Presbyterian faith, completely affirming LGBTQ plus movements, not only with women pastors, but with trans and homosexual pastors and elders, same-sex marriage. I mean, if you think it's a social issue, they are on board with it.
That's right. They are going to be, of the Presbyterians, they're going to be closest to Episcopal.
Yeah.
In some of their thoughts on social justices and gender identities and things. Some, like, from the Presbyterian Church USA, from their official website, talking about their conference they had in 2011, they wrote out ordaining bodies, which are their sessions and presbyteries, are permitted but not required to ordain lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender persons. Candidates for ordination and or installation must be considered as individuals on a case-by-case basis. So basically, they can ordain anyone into those. So they followed suit with the Episcopals. So yes, when you think of Presbyterians, you may not always, around here, you may not think of them being the most liberal people in town.
No.
But the Cumberland Presbyterian, Cumberland, but
USA.
the Presbyterian USA.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going to
mess it up a lot. Yeah. So we apologize to everybody, but try to follow along so you know what we mean.
PUSA.
PCUSA.
PCUSA basically says everything the Episcopal Church says.
Right. So
except that they're Calvinistic.
Yeah, they changed the language from one woman, one man to 2 people. And then the language is also changed to 2 people. If you're gay, queer, whatever, homosexual, and you're coming to be ordained, you must be in a committed relationship. It does not say anything else about what kind of relationship, just a committed relationship. Doesn't even mention really anything about marriage, as long as it says a committed relationship. So that's a big thing, because we know that marriage is a covenant created for us, for our good, for our betterment, between man and a woman for a specific reason, which is why this is a big step on why we're highlighting this for PCUSA.
Yes. So not all Presbyterians are the same.
Nope.
Just like
Agreed.
we're going to get into next episode, not all Baptists are the same.
Right.
So when you see Presbyterian, don't just assume you know exactly what they believe, because there are a vast difference between these 3 particular groups. One, so they changed. So PCUSA, they have modified the Westminster Confession to fit some of those beliefs.
Right.
They and things like that. So they're the most liberal as far as they go along most with the culture and society. They look the most like the Episcopal Church. Then you move on to the Cumberland Presbyterian, which are going to be middle ground. They're not as liberal as the USA, but they're not as conservative as the PCA, Presbyterian Church of America. So the Cumberland Presbyterians, they started in Tennessee.
Dixon.
That's right, Dixon. So they're the ones. So you're going to see a lot of those in Middle Tennessee, maybe a little bit into Alabama, and then very sporadic outside of that area. There's a few here and there. It's really small. So if you're outside of the Tennessee area, you probably are like, who's Cumberland Presbyterian?
Yeah, you might see them in Texas, Kentucky, Alabama, but again, there it's also very small. In 2019, I saw that the count was 65,000 members with just under 600 churches. And then I think 2024, the closest census I could find that was reliable, looked just a little bit higher with about 80 to 90,000 members. Well, still same around 600 churches.
Whereas Southern Baptist, we have like 16 million members.
Correct. Yeah.
So that you can tell the difference there. So they're one of the very smaller denominations that are out there. The Cumberland Presbyterians are.
Yeah.
But they are a little bit different than your traditional Presbyterians. They have the Westminster Confession, but they modified quite a bit in it. And their modification wasn't so much like what we see with the USA in gender identity and things like that. Right. Now, they did modify and allow for female pastors.
So they are egalitarian, yeah, right?
Yep. But they hold to marriages between a man and a woman.
Yeah, that is all through their confessions of faith, everything that the Bible teaches. One man, one woman, marriage between those two only as ordained by God. Now there is a group outside the Cumberland Presbyterian that is, they claim to have been part of the Cumberland Presbyterian that are majorly pushing, welcoming Cumberland Presbyterian is what they're calling the group, and they are pushing the Cumberland Presbyterian General Assembly to redact that and change it to where they are more affirming. Correct. And they are going to accept those so clergy can start coming in that is homosexual, trans, and things like that. That's their push.
Right. So that's some of the differences there that you're going to see. Also, one of the things, now they still have infant baptism like traditional Presbyterians do, but they're not Calvinistic.
Not as
Calvinistic as the other ones. Now, they do believe in perseverance of the saints, which was a Calvinist doctrine there. But they also, when they were coming along and all these things were happening in the 1800s, they kind of went along with the Baptists and Methodists a little bit and softened their stance on just the idea of God's sovereignty and salvation. And kind of softened a lot of that language. And basically, they are, I had it somewhere. I forget. I didn't mark it right.
That's okay. Just give us a general understanding of what it is.
Basically, they're very similar to what you would consider a traditional Baptist.
Okay.
In that sense of like, hey, once you're saved, you're saved.
Yeah.
But God died on the cross for everybody. Everybody can be saved, but only those who call upon the Lord will be saved.
Yeah.
But you can reject the Holy Spirit's drawing. The Holy Spirit draws everyone, but the Holy Spirit has to draw you. So they merge some Calvinistic, Arminius beliefs. They merge them a little bit differently than the Baptists do.
Right.
But they are going to be, when they speak of the gospel, they're going to sound more what you would think of as Baptist more so than Presbyterian. If you talk to a PCA or somebody like that. So
yeah.
They changed some of those things in Westminster Confession. They've walked away a little bit from their roots because they were kind of more part of the revivalist type group of people in the early 1800s.
1810s, yeah, right. So when the frontier movement happened and we wanted to, convert the West, whenever we wanted to move with the pioneers, the Baptists and the Methodists were like on board and immediately went and started sharing the gospel and building churches and things like that. Now, the Cumberland Presbyterians, I could be wrong, so don't, if you want to fact check me, that's absolutely fine because I just read a little bit. They were in the Cumberland and Springfield Synod that decided they were going to separate from the rest of the greater Presbyterian and leave and start being, really evangelical in the West, which kind of split them from that. And there was a pastor, cannot remember his name off the top of my head right now, that kind of led that force and that movement. And what happened was, and why there was a big tear between the Cumberland Presbyterian and the rest is because they were concerned about the church plants or the implementation of those churches and the pastors and elders not having the education traditionally known by the Presbyterians. Presbyterians are known for their education, their study of the word and things like that. And this was something that they were saying, well, there's not enough education for these pastors. So that was kind of a split on that behalf.
Right, yeah. Yes, that happened February 4th, 1810.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have it? Was I right about the synods? Was it Springfield and Cumberland? Am I not saying that?
No, they in Sumner County is where they did that, where they officially split. But yeah, I would have to
right there. Yeah, it's right there.
This is later on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. We're losing them now. But anyway, so Cumberland Presbyterian, they're not your traditional Presbyterian church.
No, not.
Now, if you go into a traditional Cumberland Presbyterian service, it's going to look like feel like a Methodist or an Episcopal type service you may see them in robes, you see them liturgy, things like that. And so there is some Presbyterian feel to it and things like that, but they're not your traditional Presbyterians, what's funny, in our area, they think that is traditional Presbyterians, but Cumberland Presbyterian is not what you think of historically, like being Calvinistic, Westminster Confession, men only as pastors and things like that. And so they've deviated from that and kind of formed their own little denomination.
Yeah, so that's left. We went left with PCUSA, kind of the middle where you'll find Cumberland Presbyterian and even the Evangelical Presbyterian Church, EPC, would be in that area. And then we go right. Right, we're going to find the more conservative side, which is PCA, Presbyterian Church of America.
Right. The Presbyterian Church of America, they've held more so to the historical kind of beliefs of what you think of the early Presbyterians, of Jonathan Edwards, Puritans, things like that, before the First Great Awakening. So they would hold more to that. They really hold more towards a lot of what was said in the Westminster Confession. They still have the infant baptism. They're very Reformed, 5-point Calvinists. They're very all-mill. They have elders and pastors and sessions and general assemblies. They actually didn't really exist until 1973. Right. But again, there were a combining of a couple different Presbyterian groups that kind of came along. They are considered the most conservative. They are the most like Southern Baptist, apart from the covenant theology. Now, one of the main differences, too, is like there's going to be a lot of Southern Baptists who are Calvinistic, but some aren't. So that's another difference. Whereas PCA, they're all Calvinistic.
Yeah,
so they don't have a split.
But they have more of an autonomy in their churches.
They're not going.
Not every PCA church is going to look exactly alike like you would see in other places. So
there's a lot less as far as formality in some of them. You're going to walk into that. If you walked into a PCA church and you're Southern Baptist and you didn't know it was a PCA church, it may take you a while to figure out that there's a difference, unless there was a baptism that day. Right. And so you'd be like, wait a minute, what's that infant doing? But if they didn't have a baptism that day, it would feel very similar. And so they're
very high churchy.
Yeah, it'd be more formal than I say we are. But, so PCA, they hold to that Westminster Confession, 5-point Calvinism, their traditional all-mill, Reformed, all that good stuff. Go back, they love the reformers of Calvin and Zwingli and Luther and them. Covenant theology is really big with them. Some of the notable people. Do you know any notable PCA?
Yeah, R.C. Sproul.
R.C. Sproul. A lot of people probably. A lot of our Baptist people have probably heard of him and read him. Jonathan Edwards, part of the First Great Awakening. Anybody else you can think of?
Off the top of my head, no. Not that I've studied or that I know was. I mean, I don't really. I don't know.
Ligon Duncan.
Okay, I don't know him.
Ligonier Ministries.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They're PCA.
Oh, wow.
Kevin DeYoung. He's written a lot of books. Lifeway carries those. Yeah. So you may have read one of his books one time. He's PCA. So a lot of Southern Baptists do a lot of work with PCAs because, like I said, as far as beliefs, they're very conservative, really similar, except for the covenant theology.
Yeah, going same direction, just maybe a little on different side of the road. That's it.
But we would say that when it comes down to how they explain the gospel, there's not really any deviations from what you would call orthodox beliefs as far as what is the gospel and how is one saved.
Right.
Now, we do think the Presbyterian Church USA is starting to become very universalist. They're headed that direction like the Episcopals are. So they're moving away a little bit because of their inclusion and including everyone and things like that. So their gospel's starting to be watered down a little bit. But CP, PCA, the gospel is going to be what we preach.
Yep.
And you're gonna hear the same thing. And so, Presbyterians are pretty closely aligned-ish with a lot of Baptists. Little nuances here, like the infant baptism.
Yep.
And then how they organize elders and sessions and things like that a little bit. But other than that, gospel, Orthodox beliefs, the Presbyterians hang on. They're pretty good for the most part, except for like the really liberal ones are starting.
Really liberal ones. That's the issue. And I mean, there's a couple more other.
We're going to get into some liberal Baptist ones
correct,
as well.
Absolutely, we are. Yeah,
we're not just picking on everybody else. We're going to pick on
the Baptists as well. That's right.
All right. Well, that's Presbyterians in a nutshell. We didn't cover
small nutshell.
very much
detail.
Right. We gave you a lot of generalizations, but it gives you an idea.
Look it up.
The denominations you can look up. You can kind of get to know a little bit more. You can find them online. They don't hide.
Nope.
They're out there. All right. Till next time, I'm Jason.
I'm Aaron.
And we are
the Baptist Boyz.
That's right. Sound doctrine.
Dripping with validity.
Yep. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Stay warm.
Stay warm.